Analyzing a polynomial function when we're looking at section 2. And so here I'm given the total number of certified pilots in the United States, where X represents the number of years since 1930. And then this, of course, would be in thousands of pilots, right? So in 1930, we can calculate how many pilots there were, and thousands of pilots. And so we want to graph this and describe its key features, right? Its end behavior, the end behavior, what's happening there, as well as, what the x-intercepts are, what the y-intercepts are, and then how it relates to this type of problem. Okay, so I don't want to, of course, have negative years. I mean, I could guess, I could put like a 1929 would be -1. But 0, when I plug in 0 into this equation, that represents 1930. So when I plug in a 0, I get my 7.708. So that represents in thousands, right? So 7,708 pilots. That's what 7.7 kind of represents there. Okay, and then I can plug in 10. So 10 years later, what's happening? 131,000 pilots, and then plug in 20. So 1950, I get 320 pilots, and then we can see as I do that, as I plug those numbers into this equation, right, I get these answers out for each year. So then after 90 years, that'd be 2000. What was that? 2020, right? Is 571,000 pilots. Okay, and so what we want to do is just make the table, okay, and then plot those and put them on a curve and see kind of what that looks like. So here's kind of what it looks like. Okay, so here's what it kind of looks like if I was to plot those. All right, so it looks like this, and we can see from the beginning it was an x to the 4th, and so that should be, and again a positive a, so that should look like it's going up and up, right, the end behavior of those. And we can see from this side we have our up, right? So somewhere over here it also goes up, but we don't care because we just want to find out from 1930 on, right? So what's the domain? Well, in relationship to our context of the problem would be starting in 1930, right? So 0 to, I can't do past 100 years because that'd be 2030. Well, we're not to 2030 yet, right? So I just want to be in from 0 to 90, 2020. So my domain would be from 0 to 90, which represents the 1930 to 2020. Okay, and then my range is my y value. So right now I can see from my graph my lowest y value is that 700 number. So that we're in thousands, so 7,000 something. So it was 7 point something. So our range would be 7.708. So 7.708, and then that keeps going to our largest number, which was in the year 2020, which is 571.621. And again, that's in thousands of pilots, right? So that's 7,708. This would be 571,621 pilots. And then extrema, we want to see where do we, kind of have a peak at and then come back down. So as we go up, and eventually start to come down. So right there, probably in the middle here, maybe at like, 55, our x equals 55, right? We would kind of reach a peak there, and then it starts to come down. So that'd be add 55 to 1930. That'd be in 1985. So in 1985, number of pilots reached a max, right? And then it went down, right? So then we go down, and then it increases. So somewhere in around here, maybe 2020, so maybe somewhere close to 2020, maybe 2019 or something like that, would be somewhere in there. So somewhere between 2010, somewhere in between here, 2010 and 2020. So between 2010 and 2020, we had a minimum, right? A relative minimum, a relative to its surroundings, right? So before that, it was above, and after that, it came back to above. So relatively close to there, we're at a minimum. So this would be relative as well. because it's not max, because we can see after that it's growing, right? It's growing back up, so eventually we're going to have more than we did in 1985 if we keep with that graph going. Had a relative minimum. Right? So those are our extrema, maybe 1985 and then somewhere between 2010 and 2020. Our end behavior we already talked about, right? As x goes to the right, our graph is also going up, right? And then our intercepts, we already marked our x-intercepts. Well, we didn't really talk about those, but somewhere maybe below 1930. But we definitely don't want to have 0 pilots, right? So maybe y-intercept. And that was in our first year, right? 1930. So that'd be 1930. We had 7,008 pilots, or 7.7. 7.7. 08. Right, that was in 1930. That'd be our y-intercept, 1930. Okay, so something to think about is what trends in the number of pilots does the graph suggest? So what do you think is happening in 1985? What do you think happened between 2010 and 2020 to get this relative minimum? What happened, do you think, around 1980, between 1980 and 1990 that we reached its max, right? What happened after that the number of pilots started going down? Okay, what happened in between there that then after that our pilots started to go up? Okay, so something to think about.